It's time to join. Or 727-2285. People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited.
It's the second edition of the All Saints East and St. Luke Entrepreneur Expo, sponsored by the Honorable Jamal Pringle. Saturday, 27th August 2022, at the Macpon playing field starting from 7 a.m. Come and support our small businesses, showcasing items in food and beverage, clothing and textiles, horticulture, arts and crafts, and many more. There will also be musical entertainment throughout the day, as well as interactive family activities. Registration can be done at the branch office in All Saints Progressive Radio at Belmont, or the leader of the opposition's office on Market Street, or call 562-9331, 562-8506, or 462-1818. Join the Honorable Jamal Pringle and the All Saints East and St. Luke Entrepreneur Expo, Saturday, 27th April 2022 at Macpon Playing Field, starting from 7 a.m. Come and support local.
Hello, good evening. It's another week and it's another episode of the Captain's Corner. I am Sean Nicholas and I'm here, Captain with the Captain. He's in the house. Harold Lovell, good night.
Good night, good night.
And
good
how
night.
are you?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Fine. I just wanted to say good night to the listening and viewing audience. I think we've had a very good last few days and very exciting prospects ahead of us.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more. I just want to say a very special welcome to our listeners on Progressive 107.3 FM. Thank you to our faithful listeners. And for those of you who are joining us on whether it's YouTube or on Facebook, and of course, we invite you to share the live, call your friends, call your families far and wide, and let them know that the Captain's Corner is on. And we thank you so very much for being part of the program this week. Well, as you said, Harold, the past weekend was a hectic one for the party. First on Saturday, there was the first ever, caravan. We can talk a little bit about that. And then on Sunday, we went into the General Council. Let's recap how you felt coming out of last weekend.
Yes, I think it gave me a sense that the United Progressive Party is energized, is ready, it's on high alert. On Saturday, we had a great event. It's the first of its kind ever in Antigua, where we did the small business pull-up. Now, the whole point of the small business pull-up is for us to draw attention to the small and medium-sized enterprises that exist in all the various communities. And so we went into the community of All Saints, the community of Sweets, John Hughes, Old Road, all the way through. We touched all of those communities which make up the constituency of All Saints, East and St. Luke. And so this was an opportunity for the party to really listen, to see, feel, and hear firsthand what's happening to the small businesses, the enterprises in the various communities, and to let them know that the UPP has a great program for small business development in this country. We know that the small businesses, they are the engine for the economy. And so the UPP intends to put a lot of emphasis to give support to small businesses in Antigua. So to all those who took part on Saturday, we just want to hail them up and say it was great interacting. We'll never forget those some of those stops. We had a great domino session down in Old Road, great fish session over in Buckley's, had a couple of malts and 1 or 2 beers over down in Sweets and John Hughes. So it was very good, and you know, it was so good to see the love for Brother Jamal Pringle. That came through in all that we did that day, where people were so happy to see him, and of course to see the team from the United Progressive Party.
Okay. So in addition to patronizing these small businesses and, of course, allowing money to circulate among our small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, what were the people saying to you? What were some of the concerns that they had and shared
One of
with
the
you?
main concerns, of course, is the economy, that spending is down, and so people really appreciated the, you know, the little circulation that we're able to generate in these businesses, because most people, you know, they work extremely hard trying to make a little, a dollar on the weekends especially, and so it came as a welcome boost to most of these enterprises. So that was really something that was very, very special.
Okay, very good. And so this is another listening engagement
A listening
by
engagement.
the United Progressive Party.
Right. Not only listening, of course, but tangibly going and leaving something
Yes.
on the counter to go in the cash register. That's very important.
Very
So we
important.
didn't just come to say, you know, wish you all the best. When the UPP gets elected, we will do this and that for you. We went and we actually said, well,
Here.
let's at least move the cash register a little bit so that at the end of the day, at least we can say that, you know, we left something there.
Okay, so persons might be asking, where is the next stop and when will that be?
The next stop will take place this Saturday, and this will be in the constituency of St. George, and it will touch some of the communities, including Pickett's and Potters and Barnes Hill and New Winthrops. It's a large constituency, so I know that this will be another exciting event, and it shows that the party is on the move, you know, and whilst I'm saying that, I think it's also important to mention that on that same day, the constituency of All Saints East and St.
Yes.
Luke comes alive once again on Saturday, because on Saturday there will be the Young Entrepreneurs Expo. And so we already know that many persons have signed up to be part of this expo, which takes place on Saturday. So we just want to encourage everyone on Saturday to go out and give their support to the Entrepreneurial Expo, which will take place at Mock Pond. It will start in the morning, but it will go all through the day. And so it's amazing that on this one-day Saturday, the United Progressive Party will be stamping its mark, not only on the field at Mock Pond, but also in the constituency of St. George. And we just want everybody to know that the party is energized and moving. And so on Saturday, you can take your pick, or why not take both?
Or do both.
You know, go to
Move
Macron
between both.
and have a look at what's happening with the expo and all the vendors who will be there. And then join the caravan over in St. George.
Right.
And, you know, stop off at one or two of the places where we'll be leaving a coin or two just to make sure that we keep, you know, enterprise alive.
And basically, as the saying goes, putting your money where your mouth is.
That's
Okay,
correct.
All right. And of course, last weekend as well, the General Council of the party met. Let's talk about the significance of such a meeting and what was the outcome.
Yes, well, I'm very proud that the party has maintained the tradition based on our constitution of keeping the organization tightly organized, whereby we can boast that in every single constituency, all 16 constituencies, we have active party branches, active constituency branches. And that's so important because it allows us to create, to develop, and to harness talent at all levels. It also creates a basis on which we can organize activities. So, for example, we've seen the activities that I mentioned last week, Saturday, and going forward. So, when we met on Sunday, it was such a beautiful sight. The room was well laid out, and I have to really compliment the Antigua and Barbuda Workers Union with the excellent conference hall facilities that they have developed. And so that created a wonderful backdrop for this important meeting. And all the constituencies were represented. There were the signs for each constituency. The whole meeting proceeded.
In addition to the Women's Forum and the Youth Forum.
Well, in addition, right, not only the constituencies, but we had the Women's Forum fully represented. We had the Progressive Youth under the banner of the Youth Forum also fully represented. So the constituencies were there, the Youth Forum was there, the Women's Forum was there. So the party presented a very well-organized, very well-oiled look of a good machine. And so that's the way we want to be at this time as we go into the next general election.
Okay, and as to the outcome of that meeting, a very important decision was reached.
It was a very important meeting for the party. The party had to consider several matters, but the principal matter that we had to deal with at this meeting was to consider the issue out there in St. Mary's South. And I think everything went extremely well in the sense that various opinions were expressed. Everyone had a chance to speak and to say how they felt about the issue. And then in the end, we were able to come to a very strong consensus. And I want to take the opportunity to congratulate our newest member of the slate, Brother Kelvin Simon. He is now the official candidate of the party, ratified at the meeting of the General Council, and he has hit the ground running, and we know that he will do well. And at the same time, I just want to say that, the party continues to salute the sterling efforts of Brother Courtwright Marshall, and we will be there by his side at every step of the way. And for us, all of us are in this together, and we are there with our brother, for our brother, even as we welcome a new candidate in Brother Kelvin Shugi Simon to be the torchbearer in the constituency of St. Mary's South.
Okay, very good. And of course, as you said, our thoughts and prayers remain with Brother Corty, and we'll be there with him as he gets over, and hopefully will be fully recovered in time to come. Okay, so if we can just shift focus now. There were many issues in the news this week. Last week, we spoke to the whole issue of the offshore bank that was in the news. And this week, we heard the Prime Minister speaking again about the government's intention of borrowing. And the concern has been raised that we are this close to a general elections, in fact, less than 6 months away. What is your take on all that has happened and continue to happen where that is concerned?
I think based on what I'm hearing on the ground, in fact, just today, I was speaking to a young man from within the constituency of St. John City East. And of course, he's very excited, looking forward to the general election. But he said to me, we don't want no 8-month government. And he put it just the way I think a lot of people are feeling. We don't want no 8-month government. In 8 months, all of a sudden, they find money to be buying parts for water for the desalination plants. For 8 years, they couldn't find any money. They sat on their hands, did nothing. All of a sudden, we see fire tenders. More fire tenders in the last 5 months than in the last 5 years. Again, sitting on their hands, doing absolutely nothing. And the way in which they are doing everything in a hurry, it's slapdash. For example, the very fire tenders. I was speaking to some officers the other day, and they were telling me, you know, the average lifespan of a fire tender would be anything like 6-7 years. And even with maintenance, you know, you're going to be struggling. We're bringing in fire tenders that are 20 and 25 years old. You know, what are we really expecting? So we need to have a government that's going to be looking at providing quality services for our people. And that includes good fire services. And this must be addressed in terms of not just fire trucks that have tanks that carry water, but we need to get back to the days when a fire truck can hook up to a fire hydrant and will have water, because many of these trucks are not really intended to be carrying large quantities of water. What they're intended to do is get you to the scene of the fire, get out the equipment, hook up to the fire hydrant so you can out the fire. There's so many things that we're going to have to address. So I would say that insofar as these issues are concerned, I think a lot of people are just fed up that they're just seeing this hurry approach to government. And as my friend said, you know, it's like a 8-month government doing things in 8 months, or trying to do things in 8 months, which they fail to do in 8 years. And it ends up with the people having to spend more money, incur unnecessary expenses, because things done in haste are never done right.
And then that now brings me to the whole issue. As we said, the offshore bank was in the news last week and remained this week. And you had made a call last week for consideration. I think you asked the question as to whether or not it was fitting for the CEO, as he was or he is, to remain or to preside over this bank. Has anyone heeded that call?
No one has heeded that call, and it's a very serious matter. My main issue as far as this matter is concerned is the way in which the Prime Minister is getting so deeply involved in the matters of a private bank in Antigua and Barbuda. He is the Minister of Finance. He must always be seen to have a hands-off approach in terms of not interfering and not meddling. This is a very serious matter. You know, I remember just around the time of the world economic crisis. It was around 2009, which coincided also with the Stanford empire going down, with the US government going after him and that type of thing. And they were concerned that even though they were running a banking institution, it almost turned out to be a, well, not almost, it turns out to be a Ponzi scheme. And there's some very troubling things that the Prime Minister has been saying. And we have to be very careful, or he should be very careful, because it seems as though the more he talks, is the more he puts his foot in his mouth. Because here it is, he's making a big deal, saying that monies that were deposited in a commercial bank, that he's telling a depositor, you know, cool out. Don't ask for your money. You're selfish. You're greedy to ask for your own money. Don't you know your money is tied up in national development? Well, I mean, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Now, he as Minister of Finance should never be getting so involved. He's saying that the money that the man had, how it was not repaid or repaid, getting into issues where the bank had made a loan to a local hotel operation, calling the name of the operation. When did we reach the point where Minister of Finance is talking about loans made by a private bank, letting out private confidential information from the bank out there? But where is the FSRC in all of this? That's my issue. Where is the FSRC in all of this? Now, we cannot escape the fact either that the person at the center of all of this, of course, is Mr. Brian Stuart Young. And I want to make it plain, I have nothing against Mr. Brian Stuart Young. I think he's a very nice man. I have a good relationship with him. He's a good family man. His daughter, I think, is the Independence baby, I think they said. Yes. She was born around Independence 1980, first baby. So it's a family that I think, you know, they are persons who are upstanding up in our community. However, the facts must be shown to be transparent, we must know exactly what is happening as far as the bank is concerned, and the fact that he sits as our ambassador to the People's Republic of China. He's our ambassador. Now, we know recently, in addition to all of this, there was an investor from China who invested in West Indies oil. And we didn't hear anything about this investor for a long time. All that we heard was that he'd been arrested. And this was way back, I think, in 2018 or thereabouts. Now we hear he's been imprisoned, and basically he'll be imprisoned for another 13 years in China. Now, we don't know exactly what's happening, but everything just seems as though we need to get to the bottom of this, and we need to know who is who and what is what. You have the our ambassador to China. You have this Chinese investor who came in shortly after he was appointed ambassador. Is there any connection? What does he know? The situation with West Indies oil. We know that it was Global Bank who gave the loan for the government to buy the shares valued at $30 million. They provided those funds. At the same time, we had this man from China who invested in another 25%, as far as I know, in West Indies oil. What has become of those shares? Who takes the dividends as they're paid out? What will happen in the future? Now that we know that the Chinese government has gone after his assets, both in China and globally, will they be coming for the assets in the West Indies oil through Fancy Bridge? What is really happening? These are the things that they need to tell the nation what is really going on. And so as far as the status of Mr. Stuart Young is concerned, I'm saying we need to know for sure what exactly is his role in all of this. And this is nothing personal. This has to do with the reputation of Antigua and Barbuda. Transparency. I mean, just a few people seem to be very tied up in all of these matters. And I believe that it is a matter that the FSRC needs to have a very careful look at, and the Prime Minister needs to take his fingers out so that there appears at least to be some impartiality when we look at the international community. Because the international community will look at the fact that you have a Prime Minister who ought to be standing back from this type of situation, and he's right involved. He has to understand that these are not matters that we should play with, because he could end up exposing Antigua and Barbuda to some serious measures if it appears as though we are not running a tight ship as far as the regulation of our offshore sector is concerned.
And then I guess the question can be asked, who regulates the regulator?
Well, the fact is,
Yes.
he is so involved
Right.
that it is very, very troubling. And he needs to step back and not expose the country to sanctions or to any penalties or anything like that.
Okay, we are due our first break. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we continue our discussion. I just want to remind everyone, whether you're listening or you're viewing, let persons know the Captain's Corner is on. We share the live and let them be part of the discussion that's taking place here tonight. We'll be right back right after this break.
It's time to join the family at the People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. We offer savings accounts, deposits, fixed deposits, loans, among other related services. You can even become a shareholder by purchasing a minimum of 50 shares at $5 per share. Membership is super easy and convenient. Just visit our newly opened credit union building on Upper Newgate Street, Monday to Fridays, 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. with proof of ID and address, along with $15 to cover registration and passbook. And you'll be set and on your way. For further information, call 462-8888 or 727-2285. People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. Today, tomorrow, together.
sponsor the second edition of the All Saints East and St. Luke Entrepreneur Expo, sponsored by the Honorable Jamal Pringle, Saturday 27th August 2022 at the Macpon playing field starting from 7 a.m. Come and support our small businesses, showcasing items in food and beverage, clothing and textiles, horticulture, arts and crafts, and many more. There will also be musical entertainment throughout the day, as well as interactive family activities. Registration can be done at the branch office in All Saints Progressive Radio at Belmont, or the leader of the opposition's office on Market Street, or call 562-9331, 562-8506, or 462-1818. Join the Honorable Jamal Pringle and the All Saints East and St. Luke Entrepreneur Expo, Saturday 27th April 2022 at Macpon Playing Field, starting from 7 a.m. Come and support local.
And we say welcome back to the Captain's Corner. Sean Nicholas here with the Captain, Harold Lovell. Now, we saw coming out this week, as we continue our discussion, a news item where Emirates Airline is seeking to get funds out of Dubai, owed funds from, not Dubai, but from Nigeria, and they're unable to do so. And it raised a lot of eyebrows around, especially at a time when our government is seeking to have this airline, Antigua Airways, coming out of Nigeria. What is your take on that?
Well, my take on this is, all of a sudden, this is coming like a flash in the pan. You take a lot of factors into account. It's shortly before the general election. We know they seem desperate, trying to appear to be doing something. Along comes, what's his name, Mike? Magnificent Mike or something?
Yeah, I don't remember the name, yes.
This printer comes along and says he's going to bring this airline to Antigua. And in a matter of weeks, we're hearing that this thing is supposed to be coming. We haven't heard about the involvement of the civil aviation authorities. We haven't heard any background about the people who are supposed to be bringing this airline using Antigua and Barbuda's name. And we have to understand that we are all invested in the name Antigua and Barbuda. And therefore, it's not something to be messed with. I am referring to what you just said as well, that Emirates Airlines, they're pulling out of Nigeria because they can't get their money. After they would have flown to these places, they now find that they can't get their money, the remittances out of Nigeria. Nigeria is holding on to some of their money. And that has to do with some foreign exchange challenges and so on that they're having. So I'm just wondering, given those circumstances, and looking at the situation where one of the major airlines in the world is pulling out because they cannot get their money out. Now, we're rushing in without any apparent serious due diligence being taken. I'm just saying, look, this is something that we need to watch very closely. The name of Antigua is involved here, and we have to guard and protect the reputation of our country. So I would just say, let us look at this very, very closely. It's happening very close to a general election. It's happening all in a big rush and a hurry. We are not hearing any serious discussion about who the people who are going to be running this airline really are. I'm just saying, let us be very, very careful. This is not about individual. This is not about Gaston Brown. This is about Antigua and Barbuda. Our name, our reputation. We can't take another scandal.
So do you see it as a situation that you get the airline or get the aircraft, let me put it that way, to be landed here and then we figure it out after?
Well, it just all seems to be just hear 'em, scare 'em. You're not getting the feeling of any reputable persons behind this. I don't want to cast any aspersions, but I'm just saying, looking on and listening, I am not that impressed with what I'm hearing. And I would like to know that if we enter into any arrangement, we can Google the people who are involved and we can see that they have some background and some track record as far as this is concerned. To have the privilege and honor to carry the name Antigua internationally. We can't just make any and everybody do that. So I'm just saying, watch this space and let's see what really happens.
And if we to remain in the aviation sector, industry, we also had news coming out this week that Frontier Airlines, that's relatively new to us, will be cutting back on its schedule for after September and of course going into the winter season. That is a cause for concern for the people of Antigua and Barbuda at this time.
Yes it is. Frontier started coming here, I think it's just over a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. And, a lot was made of it. We're not sure what is happening. We hear that they're cutting several of their routes. And we had someone do the research. And when you go into the system for Frontier, nothing appears past September 7th. What we need to find out is what is really the situation. And we're calling on Mr. Max Fernandez, the Honorable Max Fernandez, Minister of Tourism, to come and tell the people exactly what is happening with Frontier Airlines, because it's going to impact the lives of many Antiguan and Barbudan workers. You have folks who work at Royalton, for example, where a lot of the Frontier passengers tend to stay. Is it going to mean that the passenger arrivals will drop and the load count at Royalton will drop as a result? And could this place some of the jobs on the line? We need to know, and the Minister of Tourism needs to come and make a clear statement and tell the people exactly what is going on with Frontier Airlines, because people need to be able to plan, to be able to tell exactly what's going to be happening after the 7th of September. So we don't know exactly what is happening. We just know that there's nothing in the system past that date, and we shouldn't be hearing about this on the 6th of September. We need to hear about it now.
And whether or not that the government had any agreement with this airline in terms of secured seats coming into Antigua and Barbuda post September 10th or
Well, that's the other
7th.
thing.
Yeah.
We need to find out if there are any agreements in place as far as the government is concerned, and whether or not any monies would be owed to Frontier. All of these points need to be fully cleared up so that we know exactly what the situation is. I mean, these things happen, we know, from time to time. However, it's very important that you keep the public in the loop and don't keep the public in the dark and try to mama guide them to make them think that a 6 is really a 9.
Another issue I would like to bring to your attention, we got news again this week of Antigua's ranking in terms of its citizenship by investment program. We are touting that we are number 5 in the world, but when we compare against our Caribbean neighbors, we're not stacking up so well. Let's talk about that stat.
Right. Well, it's always easy to use statistics to say certain things, because when I read Antigua is number 5 in the world, that gives a particular impression. It sounds good. But then when you hear that Antigua is number 5 in the Caribbean, and then when you ask how many are there in the Caribbean, you hear there are 5. So yes, we're 5th in the world, we're also last in the Caribbean. So we have to look at our competitors, and we have to see what it is that they're doing that we may need to see what we can do to buck up. Some people are now saying, I think somebody mentioned that the Prime Minister had said that these things really don't carry any weight. Of course they carry weight, because a few years ago when we had a higher rank, it was something that we're making a big deal of. So at that time, it suited our purposes to say that it had some influence and those statistics meant something. Well, it does influence persons who are thinking of participating in the CIP program and which island they'd want to go. But it has to do with the turnaround time, the integrity of the system, the different factors that would influence persons who would wish to come and invest in Antigua. Of course, we are ranking way behind in terms of some of the developments that are taking place. When you look at the way in which the CIP developed a major hotel brand, the Kapinski, in Dominica. They are developing another major brand in Grenada, the Senses, I think. They are developing, or have developed, a major hotel again in St. Kitts, and they're doing housing projects. The CIP has been able to attract investors who have done housing projects in Dominica, again in Grenada, and in St. Kitts. So they seem to be able to get that type of development, and that's very important because you're talking about construction jobs, you're talking about infrastructural development, and overall creating a situation where you can see the CIP benefiting the country in some way in terms of fueling growth. In Antigua, it seems to be just a quick buck where all they're interested in doing is selling a passport rather than designing a program that will create construction jobs and create development in the economy. So these are things that we have to look at, but this fifth in the world, you know, is just a way of really saying one thing but not saying the whole truth.
I think you preempted my next question because I wanted to ask, and I'll still ask, what is it that we need to do? Because as you say, it's the interest seems to be seller passports. But in terms of the CIP program, and I'm stressing program, perhaps the time has come for us to take a second look as to what we have on offer?
Well,
and
yes.
refresh?
I have no doubt that the CIP can indeed play an important role in national development. It has to be designed in a way that it can bring tangible benefits to the economy. It cannot only be contributions to the National Development Fund, especially in light of the fact that they just use the National Development Fund as literally a slush fund that they just use at will. I've never seen such unplanned waste, such a monumental waste of a great opportunity for national development. You know, what we had said we would do under the National Development Fund, we had already established a board, and that board would be looking at developing projects to help young entrepreneurs, using that as money that would be earmarked for development, to get projects that young Antiguans and Barbudans could benefit from, instead of, you know, sending people here, sending people there, and not having the wherewithal to really assist small business people. That's where the CIP would be very useful. And then at the real estate end of the CIP spectrum, we would be seeing the real development of a sector that could be utilized in a way that Antiguans and Barbudans would get employment. Of course, there are about three good real estate projects in Antigua, and I have to tip my hat to those persons. One of them, of course, is Nonsuch Bay. Of course, that started under the United Progressive Party. Another one is Tamarind Hills. That's also doing very well. And another one is the Dieppe Bay Villas out in the Falmouth area. Those have done quite well. But when you recognize that you have something like 40 licensed agents, you realize that most of them are not able to really compete and to get any real development going, because the policies that have been put in place by this administration has literally killed off that sector, the sector that will grow and stimulate construction activity, because they've brought the price down to such a low level that very few people would want to invest in bricks and mortar. They rather just make a contribution to the National Development Fund, which the government can use at will, but which does not really contribute to the development of the economy of Antigua and Barbuda in a real and tangible way.
And since we are on hotels, I'm just remembering that in his many utterances, I think it was in response to, of course, the successful launch of the Book of Achievements by the United Progressive Party, that the Prime Minister somehow seemed to be taking claim of the Hodges Bay Club, saying that the UPP was not responsible for the Hodges Bay Club. The Hodges Bay Club was always there, or something to that effect. Set the record straight where that is concerned.
Yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He does not know what he's talking about. He sounds like a madman unhinged. He talked pure stupidness. I was listening to him, and he was saying, oh, Hodges Bay was in existence from long, long time. Listen, you had a place that did exist a long time ago. That place was demolished entirely. I can tell you, it was around 2006. We went up to World Travel Market, and we met with the person who was going to develop Hodges Bay Club. The people went and they borrowed money from a bank in Iceland. When the world economic crisis hit, the bank went bankrupt. As a result of that, it affected the funding at Hodges Bay Club, and they had to change ownership and get back on track. Jeff Wellermeyer came to Antigua around late 2013, 2014. It was me, or I was the one as Minister of Finance, who spoke to him, dealt with him, liaised with the Investment Authority. We made sure that we provided everything that was necessary to allow Hodges Bay Club to get up and running. I was just amazed that they are so desperate to find something to say that they did, that they are claiming Hodges Bay Club. How could they do that? The Hodges Bay Club was well advanced in terms of its development. They started from scratch. I can tell you, they demolished the previously existing building. They built the tunnel so that the road, there was a complete, the entire area was excavated, and then they had to build that tunnel over it, so that even as you drive, you're not even aware that you are driving above a walkway that links the two sides of the property together. All of those things took place many, many years ago. It was only after the global crisis and the bank in Iceland, which went bankrupt, and then the new owners came on. So if it is that Global Bank made a loan, a commercial loan, to the property, then that's something that banks do, and that's something that properties will need in order to be properly capitalized and to operate in a functional way. So it's laughable, the way he's scratching and scraping and trying to claim credit for things which he knows nothing of. I can tell you that I was the one who worked with the Investment Authority to make certain that in 2014, actually it was 2014, the letter that I signed off on, which granted them the concessions which allowed this thing to happen. I think this letter was in May 2014, shortly after Jeff Wellermeyer came to Antigua, and so we were able to facilitate the government's role in making sure that they got up and running. And I just want to say that in the 26 projects, that there was one, Perns Point, that we have had to relook at again, because Perns Point had started under the United Progressive Party, and we were the ones who were responsible for getting Perns Point on the way. The Prime Minister tried to claim it as a new project, of course, that nothing could be further from the truth. But I just want to say that Perns Point was mentioned in the 26, but in the original 26, that was not the intention. Perns Point would not feature in that 26. However, you will notice when you look that we found others that we had missed out. So even with that 26 and removing Perns Point, it's still a dismal picture of absolute failure. And I just want to once again say that if the persons who are running Perns Point, knowing that it was started on the United Progressive Party, if they felt anyway, we just want to apologize for that, because that was not intentional. We should be really bigging up Perns Point as one of the projects that started under the United Progressive Party. So it's still a failure for the ALP, but big up that under the United Progressive Party, we were able to get that project up and running.
Okay, very good. Let's shift focus a bit and look at health. We had this week a video done by our very own Brother Wenner, where he went and had a look at the pathological department at
Pathology.
Pathology department at the old Halberton compound. And we are learning that autopsies have been on hold for several months. And I know of several cases. In fact, I inquired of a particular deceased person and was told that the body has not yet been buried. Is there a crisis in our healthcare system?
There's a serious crisis. I mean, because I'm hearing so many things about what's happening, apart from the issue of the autopsies, because I too have heard the stories of persons who cannot bury their dead. And it's not fair to the professionals involved that you have an administration that just doesn't seem to get anything right. Everything seems to be falling apart. You speak to nurses and they tell you that conditions in the ICU, in the emergency room, all of these are at crisis point. And parents, friends, and other family members are being asked to bring various items to the hospital in order to make their loved ones comfortable. It's amazing, it's crazy what's going on there. And the pharmacy people, they haven't been able to issue licenses for persons, the Pharmacy Council, for persons to import certain drugs. And it is really a matter that needs urgent attention. And so when you hear the Prime Minister talking about, you know, we offer world-class service. I mean, I pay tribute to all the hard-working doctors and nurses and other staff members up at the hospital. But they ought to be commended not just for the sterling work they do, but under the conditions that they're forced to do this work. That things have reached such a point that there's so many workers in the health service that have become frustrated and they're leaving. So that is one of the issues that needs to be fixed as a matter of urgency by any new administration, a new UPP administration. We will have to address that issue with our health service. Then you ask about the clinics. What about the clinics? The clinics are not properly staffed. They don't have the necessary supplies. There is the satellite hospital over at Nugent Avenue. That has not yet been commissioned, just put there for show, but nothing in terms of commissioning and bringing it into operation. So what we see is a facade. We see this picture that's painted to give the impression that all is well. But for those persons who have had to experience real care at the hospital, whilst the Prime Minister is saying that it's so good, he and his wife jetted off just a week ago to the United States to get their checkup. Why didn't they stay here and get their checkup in what he says is the world-class facility? What he needs to do is provide the facility with the necessary resources so that the doctors and nurses can do their work and do it as we know they can to the best of their ability.
Okay. Well, we're going to take our second break and our final break, and then when we come back, it will be the last stretch on Captain's Corner for this week. So we invite you, stay tuned, don't go anywhere. In fact, for that friend or family or neighbor who is yet to join, make sure you call them and tell them Captain's Corner is still on. We'll be right back after these messages.
It's time to join the family at the People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. We offer savings accounts, deposits, fixed deposits, loans, among other related services. You can even become a shareholder by purchasing a minimum of 50 shares at $5 per share. Membership is super easy and convenient. Just visit our newly opened credit union building on Upper Newgate Street, Monday to Fridays, 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. with proof of ID and address, along with $15 to cover registration and passbook. And you'll be set and on your way. For further information, call 462-8888 or 727-2285. People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. Today, tomorrow, together.
It's the second edition of the All Saints East and St. Luke Entrepreneur Expo, sponsored by the Honorable Jamal Pringle, Saturday 27th August 2022, at the Macpon Playing Field starting from 7 a.m. Come and support our small businesses, showcasing items in food and beverage, clothing and textiles, horticulture, arts and crafts, and many more. There will also be musical entertainment throughout the day, as well as interactive family activities. Registration can be done at the branch office in All Saints Progressive Radio at Belmont, or the leader of the opposition's office on Market Street, or call 562-9331, 562-8506, or 462-1818. Join the Honorable Jamal Pringle and the All Saints East and St. Luke Entrepreneur Expo, Saturday 27th April 2022 at Macpon Playing Field, starting from 7 a.m. Come and support local.
And we say welcome back for those of you who are sitting at the corner listening to the captain. We say thank you so much for being part of the discussion. And of course, those of you who are on Facebook, we see the discussion going, and we thank you for your engagement as well. Now, Harold, also in the news recently this past week, the situation at Booby Alley is back in the headlines again. And interestingly, the Prime Minister, being the MP for the area, threatening basically the residents that if they do not move, that he will basically bulldoze them out of the area. Empathy, respect, those are words that come to mind for me. What is your take on what has happened and is happening in Booby Alley?
Again, you know, it's the Prime Minister and his own way, and that is why he has become the biggest liability for the Antigua Labour Party. Today you walk around Antigua, and so many people, they're not saying, get rid of the Labour Party. They say, get rid of Gaston Brown. There is an issue there, and you speak to a lot of Labourites, and they will tell you, they back Labour, but not on the Gaston Brown. And so you still find now that people who are faithful to the original legacy of the Labour Party and the original virtues of the values of that organization, which is supposed to be a Labour Party, that they just see that this Labour Party on the Gaston Brown is one that is concentrating only on a clique of people and not distributing opportunities
to the nation as a whole. Everything has to go through this small clique, this little cabal, that they're just doing so well. When you speak to these people, they're like they're living in an alternative reality. So that is how he's running the country. So as far as the country right now is concerned, a lot of people are saying, get rid of Gaston Brown. And so as the party looks at some of the major issues, the Booby Ali issue, as you mentioned, why is it that he always has to be confrontational? Why is it that everything he touches, it has to end in some form of confrontation with people? Why is it that you're saying to people, we are going to make life better for you. We are going to give you better housing. Where in the world you offer people better life, better housing, and they're resisting and say, we don't want a better life. We don't. Something is missing. Something is missing. And the thing that is missing is honest, straightforward dialogue. The people don't trust him. And they believe that it's just another real estate gimmick, that he's going to push them out, and then they won't ever see that area again. These are the issues that people are concerned about. People want to know that they will be given the opportunity to come back. They've asked for something in writing, but my understanding is that there's been a resistance to give them anything in writing. So why you don't want to give people anything in writing? And then you make it seem as though people are just either foolish or people are just being obstinate. They just don't want to move. No, there's obviously more to this story than what is being told. And so this issue of the residents at Booby Ali and his threat now to just bulldoze them from the place, this is the way in which Gaston Brown is destroying the soul of Antigua and Barbuda. We no longer have a country where we can reason things out, where we can come to some amicable conclusion based on our mutual interests. Everything now has to be based on force, based on the dictate of one man and his tiny little circle, and a failure to really engage and consult and bring people into the process of development, bringing people into the process whereby they can see where there are benefits that they will be able to get from whatever he's trying to do. So it is typical of this Prime Minister, and that's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to have a change in this country. We really need to change the tempo of government. We need to bring government to the people. Government that is empathetic to the people. Government full of empathy, love, and compassion for the people. Not government that just dictates to people and pushes people and tells people that if you don't do it the way I tell you to do it, I'm going to mash it down, push it down. That's what he's doing. And the only way that he can get anything done is through force. Now, we know that this administration have failed to get anything moving. The fact that they have failed in over 26 projects, it is simply because they do not know how to build alliances. They do not know how to build bridges. They do not know how to bring people together for a common cause. I'm saying this is what is needed in Antigua. They have not introduced anything at all in their 10 years or their 9 years, similar to some of the projects that we introduced. How did we bring about the Construct Antigua and Barbuda initiative? It had never been done in Antigua. It had never been done in the Caribbean. But it was a program that we were all able to come together. Everybody, government and contractors, lawyers, the insurance companies, hardware stores, banks, everybody contributed to a very successful program, which is there up to today. When we did the Cricket World Cup Incentives Act and stimulated the development of all these small hotels owned by Antiguans and Barbudans, this government has not introduced any creative programs which would allow for the growth, empowerment, and development of local people. Yes, they talk about it, but where are the programs? Where is the legislation? Where is the department, the system that has been put in place? Up to now, even to get a piece of land, it takes you months and months and months of frustration. Everything that this government is involved in, it is mired down in inefficiency and bubble. If you hear the amount of things that are going on in this country, I mean, just recently, I got an earful from some of the ministries right now in Antigua and Barbuda, where I can already see that a new administration will be able to make significant savings because of the amount of corruption and bubble that's taking place from the top right down. And I'm telling you, it is good news and bad news. It is good news because I see where we'll be able to get money that will be made available and released, which currently is going down some rat hole somewhere. But it is bad news because we will investigate and we will deal with the perpetrators of the rampant corruption that is taking place, because we must safeguard the interests of the people of Antigua and Barbuda. So this is an issue, as I said, it's good news and bad news. Good news because money will be available, bad news for those who are now taking the money and stuffing it down the crab hole.
Mm-hmm. So as we end our discussion on the corner this evening, UPP, the right choice. Your final comments.
Yes, UPP, the right choice, and let me reach out to my good people out there in St. John City East. I just want once again to big up everyone and to let them know that once again, very soon, we'll have proper representation in this constituency. The main aim, building a modern community over in St. John City East, creating opportunities for our young people, making sure that the elderly are taken care of, upgrading our sporting facilities, creating a state-of-the-art community facility which will double up with multi-purpose functions. We'll have a small clinic, we'll have a small pharmacy, we'll have a small superette. Upstairs, there will be a pavilion overlooking the football field. This will be something that we'll all feel very proud of. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, let us all work together for this nation of Antigua and Barbuda, and let us rally with the United Progressive Party to really transform this nation in the image and likeness of our people and of the Almighty. My brothers and sisters, UPP, the right choice.
Okay, and on that note, that positive note, we say thank you very much, Harold Lovell, the captain, for being on the corner again this week. And to you, our many listeners, viewers, WhatsAppers, everybody, thank you so very much for being part of the program this week. And until we come your way again next time, I'm Sean Nicholas wishing you a very good night. Goodbye.
It's time to join the family at the People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. We offer savings accounts, deposits, fixed deposits, loans, among other related services. You can even become a shareholder by purchasing a minimum of 50 shares at $5 per share. Membership is super easy and convenient. Just visit our newly opened credit union building on Upper Newgate Street, Monday to Fridays, 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. with proof of ID and address, along with $15 to cover registration and passbook. And you'll be set and on your way. For further information, call 462-8888 or 727-2285. People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. Today, tomorrow, together.
It's the second edition of the All Saints East and St. Luke Entrepreneur Expo, sponsored by the Honorable Jamal Pringle, Saturday 27th August 2022 at the Macpon Playing Field starting from 7 a.m. Come and support our small business